Hi, in this presentation you will find out about the 9 different subjects you can choose from to study in your natural sciences stream. These are the 9 subjects you can choose from. The top 4, biology, chemistry, mathematics and physics, require the specific subject A levels or equivalent, while the bottom 5, archaeology, cancer science, earth science, ecosystem and environment and psychology, do not require a specific subject A level or equivalent. In the next few slides, we're going to see a little bit more about each of these subjects in more detail, and it will be in alphabetical order.
In the next few slides, I will provide you information about examples of modules that you will learn in the different subjects as part of natural sciences degree. So if we go in alphabetical order, we're starting with archaeology, and just to mention that if the modules appear in bold, they're currently core modules for the subject, and if they're not in bold, they're optional modules. So in the case of archaeology, archaeologists are interested in all aspects of the human past, from ancient landscapes and changing environments, buried settlements or standing monuments and structures, and also the things like diet, trade, rituals and social life. And this is what you will be doing in one of the core modules in year 1, where you're doing studying the human past, where you will be provided a basic introduction to the practice and discipline of archaeology, the process by which the materials remains of the past are discovered, analyzed, and used to provide evidence for human societies from prehistory to the present day. In year 2, you will have a core module on archaeological finds, where you will learn the skills in finds processing and analytical archaeological science in an understandable and practical and applied way. And then you have optional modules such as Mediterranean prehistory, medieval Europe and the Mediterranean, or exploring ancient evidence. In year 3, you will have a variety of optional modules to choose from. For example, ancient metallurgy, where you will learn about ancient metal artifacts, and the Silk Road, which is looking at a series of linked communities across a wide geographical space. And then another example would be Italy before the Romans. We'll provide you an overview of the prehistory of Italy, and will provide the context for understanding the development of the later Etruscan, Italic, and Roman civilizations. The next subject is biology. Within biology, you can choose between 2 different specialisms. It could be molecular biology, that is looking at how organisms function, or ecological biology, that is focusing on the impact of organisms in the environment. If we're looking at molecular biology, you have 2 core modules in the first year, cellular and molecular biology, and genetics, molecular evolution and diversity. And in general, you will look at an understanding of the cell biology, biochemistry, and molecular genetics of living organisms. In year 2, you have a core module on genetics and genomics, where you will consider the links between changes to the genome and human disease and key techniques for studying the genome. But then you will have a variety of optional modules, and here are some examples, such as pharmacokinetics and toxicology, that explores the role of pharmacokinetics in preclinical and clinical stages of the drug discovery and development process covering the in vivo administration of drugs. Finally, in year 3, you do have a core module on advanced molecular techniques, which is a practical course, and you have optional modules. Again, these are just some examples. Obviously, there are more. One of them being bioinformatics and computational biology. That is looking at the complexity of biomolecular systems as a rationale for the need to develop databases and algorithms capable of curating and processing effectively large data or large-scale data sets. In the case of ecological biology, you will have in the first year a core module that is shared with the molecular biology in terms of cellular and molecular biology, but you will be doing biodiversity, ecology and behavior, where you will be introduced to the vast range of living, many of them extinct species to be found on Earth. Then in year 2, you will have a core module on fundamentals of ecology, that you're looking at how natural systems are structured, and this includes understanding how populations grow and change, how interactions among species form communities, and how biogeographical patterns across the Earth are generated. And you have option to apply to do different optional modules. It could be a field course where you will be introduced to techniques of field behavioral ecology, population and community ecology, and it will allow you or enable you to apply theory and practical techniques to address scientific questions on a range of vertebrate and invertebrate species by designing a study, collecting data, analyzing it, and also interpreting the results. Finally, in the third year, you will have a core module on conservation that you study the ideas and concepts underpinning conservation, particularly the effects on the scale in terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems, where the major role of habitat loss and fragmentation is explored and the inadequacies of local conservation measures. Then some examples of uh, optional modules are the bioinformatics and computational biology that I mentioned before for the other specialisms, but you can also do other modules such as evolution and behavioral in real world that you will be studying topics such as adaptation, sexual and asexual reproduction, sexual selection, kinship theory, communication, and human behavioral ecology.
We're going to be looking now at cancer sciences subject. In year 1, you will have some core modules on hallmarks of cancer and causes and consequences of cancer. This is looking at what is cancer, what is the timeline from a person gets diagnosed to receiving treatment and recovery, how many different types of cancer there are, and so on. When you move into year 2, you will have some core modules, compulsory modules on cancer cell genetics, where you will learn about the causes of genetic changes in cancer cells and the evolution of the cancer cell genome during cancer progression. You will also learn more specifically about some type of cancer, such as lung cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer, and you have some optional modules on other types of cancer. When you move into year 3, you will explore the importance of the immune system and immunotherapy in cancer therapy, building on knowledge acquired in the previous year. You will consider cancer vaccines, emerging cell-based cancer therapies, and novel non-cell-based therapies arising from our rapidly changing understanding of the immune system. There is actually, as you can see, a wide variety of optional modules to choose from in your year 3. It's a good time to point out that there is no possibility to do a year 4 in cancer sciences. So if you want to do a master's in this area, you can do a taught postgraduate master's.
The next subject is chemistry. If you would like to study chemistry as one of your subjects within the natural sciences stream, you're required to have A-level chemistry or equivalent. In the first year, you will have a module on fundamental chemistry that builds on for A-level chemistry or IB chemistry, and you will cover the 3 main areas of chemistry in terms of organic, inorganic, and physical chemistry, and then the fundamental laboratory work where you will focus on key techniques. When you move into year 2, you will choose from 2 different specialisms in chemistry, and this will primarily depend on your second subject within natural sciences. For example, if your second subject is biology or cancer sciences, you will take the organic and inorganic specialisms. As you can imagine, the practical side of chemistry is very important during this course, so you have a core module on lab work in both years 2 and then advanced lab techniques in year 3, which focus on a group research project. But then you will have a core module on organic synthesis and spectroscopy, for example, on the second year, and the possibility to choose between different optional modules. An example of this is medicinal chemistry and biomedical imaging, where you will understand mechanism of the universal functions behind the central dogma of molecular biology and also key molecular processes within cells. In the third year, you will also have core modules in organic synthesis, such as selectivity and controlling synthesis, and then there will be a variety of optional modules to choose from, and an example of that is protein characteristics and bioinformatics, well, you will develop an understanding of protein structure, stability, de novo design, solid phase peptide synthesis, and methods of structural analysis. You will also be learning about the correlation between structure and function in proteins. They will also present you with bioinformatic tools that are useful for structural comparison. And if, on the other hand, you take chemistry alongside other subjects such as maths or physics, then you will take the physical and inorganic chemistry specialism, which aligns better to those subjects. You will, as I mentioned before, will have some core laboratory modules in both years 2 and 3. But in the case of this specialism, you will have core modules in inorganic chemistry, but also physical chemistry called from atoms to solids, where you'll be introduced on theories that can predict and describe accurately the physical principles underlying chemical phenomena. And there will be an emphasis on energy, quantum mechanics, spectroscopy, and the solid state. And you have the option to choose from optional modules, and could be atmospheric chemistry in year 2, but then in year 3 there is the option to do, as an example, structural analysis in chemistry, where you will be studying the various structure determination methods such as electron microscopy or magnetic resonance imaging. The next subject is earth science. And earth science studies anything that is in the earth that is not a living organism. In the first year, you have 2 core modules. The first one is Earth, Atmosphere and Oceans, where you will study the rocks beneath our feet, how they are formed and the different ways in which we study and interpret them. You will also learn about weather information, atmospheric and ocean chemistry, large-scale ocean circulation patterns, and Earth's resulting in climatic zones. The other core module is Building a Habitable Planet, where the main theme of this module is the biochemical cycling, so the production and distribution and cycling of materials on the earth and their ability to and used by biological organisms. In the second year, you have a core module on soils, where you learn an understanding of the basic concepts concerning the form and function of soils and how it's important management strategies such as mitigating the effects of climate change and providing safe and sustainable food. You will also have a variety of optional modules to choose from. Examples of them are written here. One of them is Urban Environment, where you will get an overview of the global trends and causes of urbanization and also addressing the environmental challenges inherent to sustainable and resilient cities. Another option could be computer modeling in science or an introduction to it, where the focus will be on relevant examples and applications such as environmental pollution, growth of microbial populations, disease epidemics, for example, and then you will have some learning of how to use Python as well. In the third year, it's all from, a variety of optional modules to choose from. So one of the modules is environmental pollutants, where this module, it's concerned about the behavior and effects of pollutants in terrestrial, aquatic, and atmospheric environments, and how their impacts can be managed. And you could do a field course in this area if you were interested in the application of that knowledge into a practical course. There are also obviously modules on climate change, second year climate change science, third year climate change mitigation, where you will explore some of the ways of mitigating climate change, such as reducing the amount of greenhouses in the atmosphere, and how looking at the different tools available to meet the challenges such as renewable energies, low carbon buildings, carbon footprinting, offsetting, etc. The next subject is ecosystems and environment. For this subject, you will have 2 core modules in year 1. The first one is Principles of Ecology, where you will gain a general understanding of the interaction of organisms with one another and with the physical and chemical environments. You will also have a second core module on habitat management, where you will explore a variety of UK habitats and the ecological requirements and adaptations of the species found within them. In the second year, you will have 1 core module and then a variety of optional modules to choose from. The core module will be in ecological surveillance, where you will be introduced to a range of skills for environmental monitoring and ecological assessment. Then in terms of some examples of optional modules, it's the Green Planet, where you will explore the evolution of key plant systems through deep time and the significance of this process for understanding modern ecology and food security. Or for example, you might study forest ecology and management, where you will be introduced to some ecological processes in forest ecosystem and provide you with an overview of forest biodiversity. The third year is entire of optional modules. These are just some examples of them. For example, you might be doing a practical course on Arctic ecology field course, or you could take a module on tropical ecology and conservation. So tropical environments are some of the most important ecosystems on the planet, as the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems hold over 75% of global biodiversity. And obviously, the forests contribute to climate change mitigation. So if we develop an understanding of tropical ecosystems and the complexity and the threats that they are currently facing, then we can consider as well possible approaches for conservation and more sustainable management. The next subject is maths. If you would like to study maths as part of your natural science degree, you are required to have A-level maths or equivalent. In the first year, you will have a core module on calculus and linear algebra, which builds on your A-level maths. In this module, you will learn about differential integral calculus, and you will also have an introduction to Python for basic algorithm. In the second year, maths divides into two different specialisms, and the one you take will depend on your second subject. For example, if you take maths alongside physics, you will take the mathematical physics specialism. In this case, you will have two core modules in the second year. One of them is vector calculus and electromagnetism, where you will learn about the application of both differential and integral calculus to vectors and an introduction to the theory of electromagnetism as expressed through Maxwell's equations. The second core module will be complex analysis, where you will be introduced to the theory and applications of functions of a complex variable using an approach oriented towards methods and applications. In the third year, you will have a variety of optional modules to choose from. For example, game theory, that will show you how games can be analyzed by computer and otherwise, and how games can be related to numbers. Another optional module could be relativity, where you will get an introduction to Einstein's theory of special and general relativity. On the other hand, if you study maths alongside more experimental subjects such as biology or chemistry, you will take the applied computational statistics specialism. In the second year, you have some modules on real analysis, for example, where you build on the experience that you got on limit of sequences and properties of real numbers that you gain in the first year. You could also choose to study scientific computation, where you are introduced to the concept of a numerical approximation to problems that cannot be solved analytically, and you will develop skills in Python through implementation of numerical methods. In the third year, you have again a variety of optional modules to choose from. For example, coding and cryptography. This course will provide you an introduction to coding theory, in particular to error correcting codes and the uses and applications. And it also provides you with an introduction to cryptography, including classical mono and polyalphabetic ciphers, as well as modern public key cryptography. You may also take modules of a more applied subjects, so mathematical medicine and biology, for example. This module does not assume any prior biological knowledge, and it will describe how mathematics help us understand topics such as population dynamics, biological oscillations, pattern formation, and nonlinear growth phenomena. The next subject is physics. In the first year, you will study fundamentals of classical and modern physics, where you will begin discussing classical mechanics in the language of vectors and the key notions of harmonic motion, which is extended to cover wave phenomena. And then you will be introduced to Einstein's special theory of relativity. You will continue with basic ideas of electromagnetism and electrical circuits and quantum physics. From year 2, physics divides into two different specialisms as we have seen before with maths and chemistry. And the specialism will depend of the second subject that you're taking alongside physics. Again, if you're doing physics alongside maths, you will be doing the theoretical physics specialism because it aligns better to what you will be studying in maths. And then if you're taking physics alongside a more experimental subject such as chemistry or biology, you will do in the experimental physics specialism. In both cases, you have the same core module in second year, which is on quantum and statistical physics, which is looking at statistical mechanics, links with macroscopical relevant properties to the microphysics, by replacing the detailed microscopic dynamics with a statistical description. But then there are different optional modules you can choose from. For example, in the theoretical specialism, you can study dynamics and symmetries, that you get introduced to the underlying principles of dynamics and to develop techniques for the solution of dynamical problems. In the third year, while you will have still a core module from quarks to crystals, you will also have a variety of optional modules to choose from in different areas, such as astronomy, but also around ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. And examples of those modules are galaxies and cosmology, where you will have an understanding of the various physical processes that dictate the formation, evolution, and structure of galaxies. On the other hand, if you're doing the experimental physics specialism, you will obviously have a practical course on called practical methods, which is core, but then you will have optional modules to choose from. An example of that is stars and the exoplanets, where this module aims at developing knowledge on the various physical processes occurring in stars of different types. In the third year, you will continue with some methods of experimental physics that you can take on as a practical course, but you have other optional modules such as the physics of semiconductors, where you will be introduced to the physical properties of semiconductors and low dimensional systems, such as quantum wells, wires, and dots. Last but not least is psychology. Psychology divides into two different specialisms, so you can choose to either study biological psychology, which focuses on how the brain functions, or social psychology, which focuses on how individuals interact with each other. The cognitive psychology is a core module that is shared by both specialisms, and it's looking at the study of mental processes, so the ways in which we gain information from the world, how that information is represented and then transformed as knowledge. Then, obviously, in the case of biological psychology, you will study how physiological, anatomical, and genetic processes are used as a way of understanding psychology in the first year. And then in the year 2, you will progress on cognitive psychology, building up from what you study in the first year. And you will have another core module on neuroscience and behavior, which you will study how the brain and body determine behavior in people and other animals. In the third year, you will have core modules in neuropsychology of action, applied neuroimaging, and the visual brain. For example, in these modules, you will be looking at you will examine how the psychological and neural basis for the planning and control of human action, but also you will be looking at visual experiences at different time scale and how it shapes the structure and function of the visual brain. On the other hand, in the social psychology specialism, as well as cognitive psychology in the first year, you will study developmental psychology and social psychology. Developmental psychology introduces students to the fascinating world of the developing child, and social psychology is looking at trying to understand the social behavior of individuals in terms of both internal characteristics of the person and the external influence. So, for example, the social environment. In the second year, you will have core modules in advanced social psychology, advanced developmental psychology, and personality and individuals. Advanced developmental psychology builds up of what you study in year 1 and focuses on current issues and topics in this area, such as ontology of mentalism, development of theory of mind in children, and then theories of autism, the mental wall of apes, or things like language acquisition. In the module of personality and individuals, you will be presented with links between personality and individual differences and the relevant applications. So, for example, to examine IQ and intelligence within the scope of individual differences. In the third year, you will have a core module on understanding for neurodevelopmental differences, which explores how psychologists study and understand cognitive differences and neurodiversity during development. You will also have a variety of optional modules to choose from, such as forensic and mental health, and cognitive development and autism.
Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please do email us at naturalsciences@nottingham.ac.uk.